Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our office hours that are exclusively for adult day centers. My name is Emily Varville, and I am the project manager at Leading Age Virginia. As many of you know, Leading Age Virginia is an association of not-for-profit aging services organizations serving adult day centers, senior housing, assisted living, nursing homes, and home and community-based services. In case you missed it, the November office hours session focused on background information about the grant and the infection prevention and control model template policies that we developed during year one of this project, specifically for adult day centers. This session was recorded, and you can access that recording on our webpage to learn more. And the goal of year two is to build relationships, provide resources, and help your center with implementation of the template policies. So I'm going to start out with a few housekeeping notes before we move on to our content for today. If you would like to ask a question, please use the chat option at the bottom of your screen. You may raise your hand if you would like to verbally ask a question, and all of the links will be placed in the chat as needed. All office hour sessions will be recorded, and you will have access to those recordings and the slides after each session. Most office hour sessions will be set up in a similar format, consisting of a short presentation and then an opportunity for Q&A at the end. To respect your center's privacy and to encourage open dialogue about ways to improve infection prevention practices, we will end the recording prior to the Q&A session at the end of today's office hours. This ensures that all centers feel comfortable sharing their experiences, requests for assistance, and lessons learned with our team and their peers, knowing that their requests and remarks will be held in confidence. The office hours will be held the second Wednesday of every month, and the topic will vary. We would like these office hours to serve as a resource for your adult day centers when it comes to your infection prevention and control needs, and a place where you feel comfortable to ask us questions. We will be inviting guest speakers to come and give educational presentations about a variety of infection prevention and control topics to ensure that each center can learn about the current infection control practices that are applicable to your center. So to start with a quick overview for today, I will provide some updates about some of our grant deliverables and resources that we developed for you. I will spend most of today's session discussing the infection prevention and control needs assessment that we created and some of the responses that we have collected so far. And then we will finish up the session with some Q&A at the end. So as many of you know, there are 13 model IPC policy templates and additional tip sheets that have been designed to be downloaded and customized to meet your center's specific needs. The model IPC policy notebooks have been mailed out, and you should be receiving them this month. Each notebook contains information about the grant, information about the notebook itself and the IPC resource library, information about Leading Age Virginia, and of course, the model IPC policy templates and tip sheets. Another really exciting update is that we recently launched our model IPC policies for adult day centers webpage and resource library. All of the policy templates and tip sheets will be found on the site, as well as the office hours recordings, slides, and our contact information. Betsy will place the link to the webpage in the chat, and she will also add the direct link to the downloadable templates that are on the webpage as well. So moving on to our main content for today, the infection prevention and control needs assessment. For us to best serve you, we wanted to understand the unique needs of your center. So the IPC needs assessment allows us to better understand infection prevention practices in place at your center, better understand the adoption of the grant developed policies and related tools, better understand any barriers and challenges that you may be facing, and we can align Leading Age Virginia's resources with any observed gaps in infection prevention practices or challenges that are reported by your centers. The needs assessment was sent out to all adult days in Virginia, and we are still accepting responses until July. The main purpose of this needs assessment is to hear what we can do to help you navigate and implement these IPC template policies in your center, and to provide you with the proper resources to help make that happen. If you haven't filled out the needs assessment yet, Betsy will place that in the chat as well. So on this slide, I provided some more specific details about the needs assessment. We carefully structured 22 questions about a variety of topics. We wanted to learn about some demographic information from your center. For example, questions about staff numbers, number of participants, licensure type, that type of stuff. We also have a section asking questions about your center's infection control strengths, needs, challenges, and barriers. And the last section is focused on accessibility and how we can best communicate and engage with your center. We do understand that 22 questions may seem daunting, but we wanted to really capture the overall picture of infection control at your center so that we can better assist you with the implementation of these policies. After reviewing the responses of the needs assessment, I will say that although each center is different and has unique perspectives, we were able to find common themes and topics within the answers to the questions. So to start with the first question, what are some of your center's strengths in infection prevention and control practices? Here are some of the strengths that were identified: environmental cleaning and disinfection, hand hygiene, respiratory hygiene and cough etiquette, selection and use of PPE, auditing and monitoring, and participant care equipment, devices, and supplies. Now, after looking at this list, do you feel like these are strengths that are representative of your center, or do you have any additional strengths that were not mentioned here? And if you feel comfortable sharing, please feel free to use the chat to add strengths that your center has when looking at infection control. And I'll give everybody a minute if they would like to throw some things in there that they don't see up here. Okay. And then let's see. For the second question, it was, what are your greatest challenges in having a robust infection prevention and control plan in your center? Here are some of the challenges and barriers that were identified: frequent policy and guidance changes, getting participants to use hand washing stations, resources, staff and staff turnover, participants coming into the center when sick, and outbreaks for things that might not have as much guidance, such as lice. After looking at this list, do you feel like these challenges and barriers represent your center, or do you have any additional challenges and barriers that you're facing? Please feel free to use the chat and add in challenges that you may not see on this list. Okay, so moving on to the next question, which 3 topics do you find most difficult to implement in your adult day center? Here are the most common topics that we identified. It is respiratory hygiene and cough etiquette, COVID protocols, hand hygiene, implementation and monitoring of practices that may happen at home, for example, devices and supplies, and IPC programs. If you feel comfortable, please use the chat to add in infection control topics that your center has found most difficult to implement. Okay, so when asked the question, which 3 topics would you select as your top choices of needing additional support and resources, these are some of the most common responses that we collected: group coaching, staff training and adult learning principles, workplace health, regulated waste disposal, participant care equipment, devices and supplies, and hand hygiene. Again, please use the chat to add in infection control topics that your center might need additional support for. And I see that we have one in there about the group coaching, staff training, and adult learning principles, which is amazing because that is going to be the topic of our next office hours. So as you can see, some of the topics may show up as a strength in one center, but may be challenging for another to implement, and that is completely okay. While we are sharing with you some of the most common responses to the questions, we acknowledge that every center is different and will have a variety of strengths and weaknesses depending on the center. We intend on reaching out to each adult day center independently to discuss their needs and provide support to make sure that implementation of the model policies is easier. So for the next session, it will be held on Wednesday, January 10th at 1:30. Ginger Van Hooser from Virginia Department of Health will be joining us to discuss adult learning principles and tips for teaching infection control topics and best practices to center staff. We chose a speaker and topic because group coaching, staff training, and adult learning principles were a common theme among responses from the needs assessment. Registration for January office hours is open, and Betsy will place the link in the chat. So we will be using the needs assessment responses to determine topics for speakers to present at the future office hour sessions. And if you have not submitted a needs assessment yet, please do. We really want to make sure that we are discussing topics that are beneficial to your center, and hearing from you is really the best way to accomplish that. So this page includes my contact information because I will be your main point of contact for everything related to this project. I will assist you with implementation of the template policies, meet with your center one-on-one to provide resources, and answer any questions you may have. I can also put you into contact with health quality innovators and Virginia Department of Social Services, depending on your questions or need for technical assistance when you're implementing these policies in your center. Making sure that you feel supported and that your IPC needs are met is my #1 priority. If you have questions or suggestions for infection control topics that you would like to be included in an office hour session, please reach out to me and let me know, and I will do my best to make that happen for you. Betsy will drop my email address in the chat so that you have it. I will now be stopping the recording so that you feel comfortable sharing with our team during the Q&A session of this meeting.